On October 1st, 1958, NASA was founded. Since its founding, NASA has put men on the moon, launched the Hubble Space Telescope, put rovers on Mars, and has made a number of other accomplishments. In this documentary, I will be discussing the founding of NASA, Apollo 11 and how communication played a crucial role in it, and how NASA's past influenced its future. This is the history of NASA.
Control to Major Tom. Ground control to Major Tom. Take your protein pills and put your helmet on. 10. Ground control to Major Tom. 8, 7.
On October 4th, 1957, Sputnik was launched by the Soviet Union. Sputnik was Earth's first artificial satellite.
Check ignition.
This shocked America and started what was known as the space race. One year later, NASA was founded with the National Aeronautics and Space Act of 1958. The Act states, "The Congress hereby declares that it is the policy of the United States that activities in space should be devoted to peaceful purposes for the benefit of all mankind." The Act was signed on July 29, 1958 by President Eisenhower. On October 1st, 1958, NASA started work. A strong incentive to get this bill passed was the launch of Sputnik 3 from the Soviet Union. Once NASA was founded, they had a goal of being the first country to put a man into Earth's orbit. This program was called Mercury. 9th, 1959, the Mercury astronauts were announced. This roster consisted of Scott Carpenter, Gordon Cooper, John Glenn, Gus Grissom, Walter Schirra, Alan Shepard, and Donald Slayton. Before launching humans into space, NASA launched two monkeys, Able and Baker, on May 28, 1959. February 9, 1962, John Glenn became the first American to orbit Earth. He orbited Earth 3 times in the Friendship 7 Mercury spacecraft. However, the Soviet Union beat America to having the first man orbit Earth when in April 1962, Yuri Gagarin made a full orbit around Earth in his Vostok 1 spacecraft. After Mercury, NASA decided to focus on preparing for a mission to the moon with Gemini. The goal of Gemini was to learn techniques for deep space exploration. The first Gemini mission with astronauts on board took place on March 23, 1965. The astronauts on board were Gus Grissom and John Young. June 3rd to June 7th, 1965, Gemini 4 took place, which was the second piloted Gemini mission. This is when Ed White performed the first American spacewalk. On November 11th to November 15th, the final Gemini mission took place. Since this was the final mission, the astronauts wore signs on their backs that said, "The End." May 5th, 1961, President Kennedy announced he wanted to put men on the moon by the end of the decade.
And they may well ask, why climb the highest mountain? Why, 35 years ago, fly the Atlantic? Why does Rice play Texas? We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon. We choose to go to the moon in this decade and do the other things, not because they are easy, but because they are hard.
This mission to put men on the moon was called Apollo 11. The goal for Apollo 11 was to launch a 3-man spacecraft and have 2 of those 3 astronauts land on the moon. The program tasked with putting men on the moon was the Apollo program. First Apollo mission was Apollo 1, which ended in disaster. Gus Grissom, Ed White, and Roger Chaffee all died in a ground test fire. This forced NASA to redesign the space capsule. After the redesign, the Apollo missions focused on preparing for a moon landing. It wasn't until Apollo 11 that NASA finally put men on the moon. The astronauts that NASA would be sending to the moon were Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins. To train for the moon landing, the Apollo 11 astronauts went to a number of locations. Between July and October of 1967, NASA made a 1-to-1 scale of a portion of the moon's surface at Cinder Lake Crater Field in Arizona. Using TNT, NASA blasted craters into the ground until it looked like the moon's surface. They sent the Apollo 11 astronauts there in the lunar module and tested them to make sure they could identify which part of the moon they were on just by looking out of the lunar module's window. The Apollo 11 astronauts also visited a number of other locations, including the Grand Canyon, Arizona, Sierra Blanca, Texas, Nevada National Security Site, various locations in Hawaii, and Craters of the Moon National Monument in Idaho. On July 16, 1969, Apollo 11 launched with Neil Armstrong, Buzz Aldrin, and Michael Collins. During the mission, the astronauts communicated with mission control and amongst themselves. This was crucial to make sure that the astronauts had a safe landing. On July 20th, 1969, the astronauts landed on the moon's surface. This great accomplishment was being communicated to the world by television. An estimated 650 million people were watching the moon landing.
I'm going to step off the limb. It's one small step for man, one giant leap for mankind.
The first man to step on the moon was Neil Armstrong. Buzz Aldrin put an American flag on the moon that still stands there to this day. After Apollo 11, the astronauts returned to Earth safely.
But NASA has gone through a number of phases. You know, they had the Apollo era of the 60s and early 70s, and then in the 70s and 80s they went through another development phase involving the space shuttle. And the space shuttle flew for a long time, and then they went into kind of an operational phase where they're just basically, space shuttle has been designed, it's been developed and manufactured, and they made several of those, and so they're flying them to do experiments and conduct science and so on. So they went through an operational phase in that. Then they went through another development phase involving the International Space Station. So we helped develop that, design it, and manufacture it and assemble it in space using the space shuttle. And now we're going through another development phase. And so these kind of peaks and valleys as NASA goes from development to operations and back to development, or maybe some parts of NASA are going through development, other parts are in operations and so on. That kind of helped me assess, how I did my job and, kind of forecasting what is needed for the next generation of space travel.